Hello and welcome to Won't Be Forgetting That, a podcast talking about all of the most awkward and embarrassing moments people have had whilst working in the arts and entertainment industry. I'm your podcast host, Sim Yourhead, and today we have a guest. They are an actor, a clown, a theatre maker, Hew Parham.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on just now, mate. Now, we are in the midst, I'd say not even the midst, actually, we're on the tail end.
We are.
The final weekend of the Adelaide Fringe.
Last 2 days.
How are you doing?
I'm alright. I'm pretty tired.
Yeah?
I feel like I've been doing this thing this week. I've gone to see a few festival shows, and it seems to be my way of having a little nap in the afternoon. Sort of
During the shows?
Yeah, I know. I'm just,
All right, name and shame these shows. Who are they? We'll cancel them right now.
Oh yeah. Oh
No. It's nice to sit somewhere with aircon just now as well.
I think
to be honest,
especially last weekend when it was so hot.
Yeah.
And I'll name it. I went to see the Symphonie opera, and I went for 3 hours, and it was in German, and it was dark, and I had a good little. But it's actually kind of good. It sort of keeps me refreshed for the evening. That seems to be my trick. It seems to be go see an interval. What's it called? A matinee.
Matinee.
Have a little nap, and then we're fresh for the evening.
You're not the only person asleep in a matinee as well.
No.
I think you're if you're not asleep, you're the odd one out. Honestly,
Yeah.
Having done quite a lot of matinees myself. It's an interesting crowd.
It's a tough crowd. Yeah.
But yeah, mentioning, I suppose, the Threepenny Opera and it all being in German, I usually like to start this podcast off with a little bit of a compliment for my guests, because I get incredibly talented performers on here and then just get them to talk about their absolutely worst parts of their career, which is not how I want to represent my guests, because it makes them sound like they're crap at their job, which is never what I want to do. So I did want to start off with a compliment, but I'm actually going to say instead, how dare you? You're not German yourself. I have watched multiple things with you have been a German man, and you're coming here with this slick Australian accent.
Well, I'm sorry.
How very dare you?
Oh, I know. It seems to be some kind of... Like, what does it someone say the other day? You go... Is it like German is the one culture that you can still pay out and still kind of get away with it? I don't know. It's sort of like...
Oh, look, they did some stuff which I think they can still get paid out for a fair few years.
Yeah. Definitely get paid out for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can somehow just get away with it.
Yeah. So I had the absolute pleasure of going to see you in... Well, I mean, the show that's currently on just now, but at time of recording, has unfortunately finished, Red District. Fuck, that's an entertaining show. It does exactly what it says on the tin, and it is fucking fun.
Yeah,
I loved it. It was a late night show, and I'm an early morning baby, so I was like, all right, I'll stay up past my bedtime.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
Yeah.
And you were like MC, clown, entertainer, maybe the only person that spoke in the entire show as well.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Did you see the like, speaking of embarrassing, did you see it the night where they forgot to they forgot the poll?
So that's actually perfect. I did.
Yeah.
So like, you don't have to say as well, don't throw anyone under the bus.
No.
You covered very nicely for... I mean, it always feels longer on stage.
Yeah.
It felt quite long in the audience as well, I'll be honest with you.
It is a context for the people listening. So it's towards the end of the show. I guess it's a sort of a dance show with acrobatics and other things like that. And then basically the second to last routine is an amazing Carly who basically runs the show as a phenomenal pole aerialist, and I'm building up for this whole bit to kind of, it's a lot of innuendo in the show, and then they're saying this bit about like jumping on a pole and having a climax and stuff like that, and then it just kind of noting, it's just, you just kind of think they're pretty efficient, the girls, with just bringing stuff on, and then it's just not coming.
It's those few beats of just like, nothing's happening. This transition's usually over by now.
And then I just inexplicably went to sort of a pseudo strip to me singing Cotton Eye Joe for some... I don't know where that came from.
It was Cotton Eye Joe. And you had some very enthusiastic audience members asking you to take your pants off as well.
Wanted to take the pants off.
Yeah.
The problem was, I think I'm going to have to think about this in future or get some stripper pants, because also I was wearing boots which had like laces. I think if I had things that I could just slip off, and then that thing you go... you just don't know what underwear you're wearing in that kind of moment.
You're never expecting to take your pants off in a show.
No.
Well, unless it's...
unless it's sort of, anticipating
unless you're any of the other cast members in that show.
Yeah.
But yourself, you're not planning, you're like, I hope everything's in there properly.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got your mic pack attached to your belt as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
An impromptu striptease. Although I feel like the character, like the clown, could get away with being a very awkward striptease, but also you're like, do I have to be forced into taking my pants off to
yeah,
cover?
I know. It's difficult to make assessments at that moment of going, how much am I getting paid?
Yep.
Is this worth it? You know,
Are they going to come in with the pole whilst I have my pants around my ankles and have to waddle off?
I have to, yeah, exactly. And then like maybe a certain measure of, I think there's a certain measure of you needing to keep a certain amount of control and not giving the audience everything at times.
Because they will take everything if they can.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Because it was interesting. There was another show I saw in the Fringe. I don't know if I should mention the name or not, but I saw it. It was like a clown show, and I saw it on the Friday night. It was pretty much all improvised, and I thought it was phenomenal, and I recommended to a few people to see it the next night. And then the next night, I think had taken this cue from the audience that everybody wanted to be non-verbal.
Oh.
And then did the whole show non-verbal, and I went, what? I mean, like, I guess, you take a risk and you can, I guess it's good to learn. But I kind of went, I felt at that moment, or from what I could guess, is that he let the audience kind of dictate it. I mean, I think you need to meet them somewhere in the middle, I think. And I think it's what I try and do with that show as well, that I sort of play them a bit, but I also, it's sort of, like, I had to be really sassy I think on Friday night, sort of in the show at the opening when I'm sort of introducing a lot of the girls, and then as one of the girls was coming up, I noticed this guy was on his phone, and I just was like, look, they're very beautiful women, and I just like totally went to town, and it was just like, is she not good looking enough for you? Like, get
chastising
off your
this
phone.
man
Chastising, get off your
on
phone.
Instagram,
but I guess the rest of the audience love you, for in some ways, like taking control or dictating, like to an extent,
because you do need to be in control of the show. I think a lot of the time the audience will ask for things, but people are drunk, or people are just like excited to scream things out, or they're like what they think is like the funny person in the office, which isn't always the best translation to being the funny person anywhere else as well. So you're like, I'll have a little back and forth, but I don't think I'm giving you the reins.
No.
Also, people that go and see shows and then sit on their phone the entire time is bizarre.
Oh.
I helped with filming another show, and I won't say what it was. Very popular show during the Fringe, though. And older couple, I'd say maybe late 50s, early 60s. Man with his wife. The man sat the entire time playing Words with Friends. And it was just very bizarre.
Oh,
These amazing performers. And I'm like, you've presumably paid $30 to $60. Just maybe don't come and see it if you don't want to see it.
Or do you think that the etiquette has sort of, people have lost the etiquette a little bit these days?
I think that's the same with cinema as well. Like I love going to the cinema, but I hate just fucking people talking or sitting on their phones. But also because I think in like the live shows or the Fringe kind of shows, especially where they like you can interact with people and they're like, take your phones out, video, and like, I take my phone out, okay, I'll just do some work.
yeah.
So it's less I suppose like you don't have to sit there silently. It's not like a very strict theatre show where you're like, nope, everybody shut up, no phones allowed, you have to be paying attention to the stage the entire time. I feel like it has changed a bit though, especially because even just like watching telly, you're just on your phone all the time anyway.
I know. It's really tricky. I've performed a lot in China, and I did a shadow puppetry show over there, and I had to really get used to. I mean, it's a massive country, and I think the culture is different depending on what city you're in. But for a lot of it, was people were on their phones a lot.
Wow.
In the show, and I used to get quite aggravated about it.
Yeah.
And then our local producer said, "Oh, it's probably okay. Probably what they're doing is if they're on their phone, they're probably on WeChat going, I'm at this thing, you should come to this thing."
Oh, wow.
And so it's like
that's such a different thing.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. But it's not fun. You sort of, when you see like a lot of glowing lights out there and stuff like that, you still kind of, I mean, I'd rather that people were paying attention, but you had to really sort of maybe let go of your ego a little bit, or just check it, because I think when I'd to get angry, it wouldn't go down well over there. So,
and as well, it's one of those things where like live performances, you feed off the audience so much as well. So if you're thinking they're being rude, you're like, no, fuck them. I'm not going to give them my best show now. How dare they? I've had a few friends that have gone over to Japan to perform live. And incredibly respectful people over there, but even to the point where the audiences are almost silent, and especially even during like wrestling shows and stuff like that, where you're like, you see your Western audiences like Australia or America, where they're insane people for the most part, and they're all just politely clapping and then it's just silence the rest of the time. And
Yeah.
very weird energy to work off of.
It's I mean, the opposite side of that is I found a little bit performing in the States. I found them very giving, to the point where I had this show Giovanni I used to perform, where I had built like questions or stuff built into it, which I just knew people in Australia were not going to react to,
Yep.
or they weren't going to say anything to. And then when I was performing in New York, and then they would say, and then they would
okay.
respond to it. So I'd be like, I had to really kind of
Take a step back with
Yeah, I
even
had to
just the memorized timing and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. It's just I built in so much expectation here that people are just going to go, and so I'd have this gag because of not people responding to
Yeah.
it. So it's interesting, different cultural humor and expectations. It's
right.
fascinating.
And then you can really throw yourself off and you're like, was that a bad show? I don't know now. Like, it was different.
Yeah,
And then you're trying to get the gauge for like what's a good show there versus what's a good show here. But
Yeah.
you have the same show,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
like, was it a good show there?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that sort of stuff I found always really weird.
Yeah.
But especially, I mean, yeah, you've performed so many different fucking places as well, and with so many different styles of show as well. From what I could find on the internet. Do you find yourself like leaning towards certain shows for certain countries or certain styles for certain countries?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, that shadow puppetry stuff is, I guess the non-verbal stuff is going to work,
Yeah.
Better in places like China, and then would do like China, Norway, Germany, and then probably my more verbal stuff. It's interesting, Giovanni. That show was really doing that in America was really interesting. I didn't realize how cultural my humor was.
Yeah,
in a
right.
way. Well, a lot of that show was about this Italian waiter, and I guess his restaurant is going to close down. It's like almost like the last night of the restaurant, and and railing against franchises and stuff like that. And then in the States, I mean, again, a generalization,
Yep.
but they love franchises. They're like,
That's where they came from.
yeah, they're like, haven't they done well? Starbucks, it's taken over the world. So
Yeah.
it was funny, they just weren't responding to that stuff in the show, or weren't getting my, kind of getting my anger about it.
They're like, oh, congratulations, you can go and work for a chain restaurant now.
Yeah. Like the whole last bit of the show is like the irony of that maybe the show is all existing in the mind of this guy working in a fast food restaurant,
Yeah.
and they're all going, good on him.
Yeah. That's a stable job.
Isn't he? Doesn't he done well?
Did he get healthcare with that job?
Yeah.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah, even just the cultural divide with that kind of stuff's very interesting. Yeah, like for English-speaking countries to English-speaking countries, like trying to get some of that stuff across, because I'm Scotland. I'm Scotland. I am Scotland.
You are Scotland.
I am Scotland.
Oh,
I don't know
nice
if you
to meet
knew
you,
that.
Scotland.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I am Scottish. There we go. I'll edit that part. No, I'm Scottish. Yeah. But yeah, like even we've got an incredibly dry sense of humor, and then coming over here with that, people are like, "Wow, you are rude." And I was like, "Oh no, that was a joke. Do you not get that? Oh, okay." But we're just so mean to each other. Whereas,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone here is a lot nicer, I'll be honest. Which I think's a good thing.
Yeah.
For the most part, be nice to each other.
Do you find Adelaide pretty hard? Tough work? Ooh, you don't want to put anyone off, but I'll tell you something. Like I've MC a lot of stuff, and then I got to know a lot of the street performers,
Yep.
and they said to me, a lot of them would come here to work up their show first,
Yep.
because they said we're some of the hardest crowds here,
Yep.
and if they could crack us, then they're going to be fine anywhere else.
You get that all the time. So we've had plenty of comedians on this show before. They workshop, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
their Melbourne Comedy Festival show in Adelaide.
Yeah.
And that's the way that they do it. And that's 99% of the comedians you'll see here do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same with all others as well. Adelaide's, and it's very dependent, I think, whether they're locals or they're imports like myself. I'm from Melbourne. I think it's, if they're coming to the Fringe to see shows in the Fringe, they're very excited. A lot of locals are like, oh, go and see something then, I suppose. And I did a show here a couple of years ago, which didn't go over very well. It was just poorly marketed, and it wasn't maybe a great show anyway.
Yeah.
But my God, for a comedy show, just having deafening silence at 6 p.m. when it was like about polyamory, and it was a very silly show and a lot of like slapstick to a 60-year-old plus crowd.
Oh.
Maybe not the best crowd in the world. Yeah. So, look, I don't know. you've got good crowds, you've got bad crowds. I think Adelaide's just a little bit more reserved crowds from what I've seen anyway.
Yeah.
But also, like, I've seen some Melbourne crowds for friend of the show, Paul Westbrook, and we've even had most of the show on Rouge as well. Very tepid response in Melbourne, but then Adelaide is just fucking wild.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a real rough one to tell sometimes.
It is. I mean, I guess it depends on the night, the venue where you're at.
How goddamn hot it is.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it was funny in Red District, I think it was on Sunday, I was really, sometimes I kind of pick on an audience member or I just sort of single someone out.
They deserve it sometimes.
Yeah, and there was this guy on the front row and he had his arms crossed, this old guy, and it was like, he just did not look like he was having a good time. But I just took it upon myself of like, could I crack him through the show? And I did manage to get him to crack a smile at some point. But then I found out after the show that he was in fact a priest.
So you mentioned that in the show I came to see. Was that real?
Yeah, that was real.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Was he there to convert people?
Yeah, maybe. I don't think he was like a relative of someone or something like that, but you just kind of went, feels like a strange show to come to. And
if you're a relative of someone, if you're that person in the show, just give them a little heads up what the show's about.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I was sitting opposite when I came to see it.
Yeah.
I was sitting opposite from across the room because it's like in a round essentially.
Yeah.
This show. So I was sitting across from who I presume is a father and daughter or a very large age gap in a marriage.
Right.
The daughter was loving it and the dad did not know where to look. And I'm just like, look, beautiful, come along, support the arts.
Yeah.
Buy the tickets.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't imagine. I don't have kids myself. I don't know about. Do you have any kids?
No.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine going to see a very kind of salacious show. I would say.
Yeah.
With your daughter.
Yeah. It's fun. I was talking to someone about this the other day. Going, sometimes it's a slightly tricky thing with shows like that maybe a heterosexual male how to behave.
You're like, where do I look?
Yeah. Because I want to show my appreciation. Because you're doing very, very well.
Yeah.
And you're very athletic. But then I don't want to be too excited and seem creepy.
Yeah, right.
But then I don't want to not do anything because then I'm look equally as creepy and bored.
And I make eye contact. Like, where do I look? Am I staring at the ground? Because then I'm not watching the show. And yeah, that was the opening of the show as well. Or sorry, whilst everyone's coming into the show, a lot of the women are walking around in the crowd. And I was like, I've seen, I'm sure as you have, you see everything when you're a performer for a little while, but I was even like, oh God, I don't know how to interact with this. Very like, they hold all the power and I'm like, fuck, I know some of the people in it as well. And even then I was like, I don't know how to react to this. Oh God.
Yeah.
But I suppose with that kind of work, you're the only male in that show. Do you find it awkward at all being like the only male that's not doing insanely like, I don't know if you can do insane upside down handstands, cartwheel, splits.
I'm not. People are asking for it or demanding for it, but
maybe next year.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Do some pole classes and develop my flexibility. It's funny. I think last year when it was my first time doing it, I probably found it a bit more awkward and a little bit around in change rooms and like I think I would sort of hang around outside while people got changed a bit more, and then equally, like a bit sometimes where do I look or something. But I think the more that we've done it, and I think this year in particular, it just seems to have gotten to the point where it's a bit like
another day in the office,
to the point where I sort of go, should I be it's so prosaic now in a way that I kind of go like, shouldn't I be like slightly turned on or something?
Just
that I'm just
interested?
Yeah, or interested. I just kind of gone a bit like, I guess when it gets to a point of being a job.
It's just exposure therapy. I think.
Yeah, that's right. I think there's at times, it's funny, like, it feels like there's still these weird subtle lines and stuff like that. And say one of the girls, Beatrice, there's a bit where she does sort of a bit behind a blind and is sort of stripping as a kind of silhouette bit. And I've got to be ready to jump out really quickly for the next bit. I don't know, there was something about that I kind of go, I don't look at that moment. It's sort of something about that. It kind of feels... I don't know. I think maybe because she's behind the blind and it's sort of meant to be in silhouette, and I kind of feels like the silhouette is the thing for the audience, and I think she's maybe just in a G-string or something at that moment. And I kind of feel like out of respect at that moment, you know, I just sort of turn around and try and feel it in the music.
Yeah.
And then, it's sort of common sense, I think. And then, but I think also, I feel it's maybe why Carly asked me to do the show. And I feel blessed. In some ways, I feel like I've got at times typecast as I'm not creepy in this show, but I kind of go. There's other times, like this other show I did where I was playing like it was all female, but I was playing a really misogynist radio DJ. And then I don't know, there's another thing that felt like it was similar. But I almost take it as a almost respect that they go, I'm the guy that they would choose, that they feel safe around in a way.
The nicest people play the villains.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, if you're a villain in real life, I don't want you there.
No, that's right.
But it's nice to have somebody you're comfortable with, and especially in those kind of shows as well. And I'm sure they're all super comfortable with themselves, but you never want to be putting them in a position where they feel uncomfortable. And you're like, again, it's one of those things where you're like, this is a really fucking weird job. If any other job, if you were like, oh yeah, I went into the accountancy firm today and there was just like loads of naked people wandering around, you're like, yeah, that's not normal.
No.
But in any of the performing arts, you're like, yeah, fair enough. And you're always like respectful, of course, and boundaries and everything, but
totally,
it's fucking weird.
Yeah. And I think it's part of why Carly, she had to beg me to do this show.
Oh, humble brag there, Hew, was it?
Yeah. But I think maybe because initially I felt it should have been a female.
Yep.
And I just kind of went, there's a lot of stuff about empowering female sexuality and stuff. And then for a while I was like, I don't know, I think it should be a female. But she was really strong and going, no, I think I want a male presence. And she was really smart and going, I think I also really want a comedic presence, because I think sometimes those shows can be weirdly serious.
Yeah.
And I guess in some ways what I'm trying to do is provide a bit of relief amongst that, and it's sometimes I'm trying to be suave, but also sort of a bit goofy, and so that kind of also provides that relief between, because I think it would almost be exhaustingly in your face, that
for
show.
The audience, for sure.
So I think I'm trying to, in a funny way, bring a bit of comfortability through that. So, and
people know they can relax as well. It's not just constantly like, oh my god, and then they can like reset themselves and like, okay, I can look at the stage again without feeling like a creep. It's normal again now.
That's right.
But I mean, it's like great work as well. Obviously, with all the clowning and stuff, it comes across really naturally, and I think it's really well woven into the show. So I think it is like having the male presence there as the goofball, for lack of a better word, it works fucking well.
Yeah.
But I suppose as well, I will get back on track with the podcast.
Sure, yeah.
Being a clown, now we've had some other clowns on here before, Sam Dugmore.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested because, Gary Starr as well, you have to embarrass yourself, essentially, as part of training, as part of your job. Do you find that carries over into your real life now, where you're like, it's fine, I've done far more embarrassing stuff in professional life than personal life? Or do you find anything embarrassing anymore at work? Or is it just one of those things where you're like, just another day in the office?
It's a good question. I guess, no, I think I definitely get embarrassed by things in life, know? It's sort of, or, even within this show, it's so funny, like where, the other girls are going, I'm sure you'll get laid out of this show or something like that, because you're sort of the thing. And I'm going, it's not translating to off stage or something like that, or it's fine on stage to be like that, but I sort of don't find it's translating to going, how you doing to, so.
Hey, remember me? Doing the meet and greet outside?
That's right. Yeah. So I think it's a very different headspace. I think I guess what I've learnt though, and I teach a lot as well, and I think I try and lead often through maybe lead through failure, or lead through embarrassment, or lead through kind of a playful shame or something like that, to make people feel uncomfortable. And I think when people come into classes and stuff is new, and if I can show that I'm very fallible and if I stuff up, and then like say last night, I think I just had a total faff, one of the first things that I said, and I just called it. And then, a friend after the show goes, in a way, it kind of makes you feel more comfortable as an audience if you just kind of own it.
Those kind of shows lend themselves really well to be like, oh, rewind, blah, blah, blah. You found with a bit more like quote unquote serious theatre, when you fuck up that much in it, you're like, oh, they all noticed I messed that line up and I can't just go back to starting that sentence again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that kind of stuff. And it's like you said, you're like, oh yeah, no, it's funny. Covered it well.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I do a little bit of serious theatre still, or like one of my shows, Symphonie the Bicycle got coming up. That's kind of pretty serious. There's elements of direct address in that show with the audience, but a lot of it isn't. But I find sometimes even that clown sensibility of, or even like I think sometimes just being okay with failure will just actually frees you up. I think when you have that tightness of I've got to get everything right, I've got to get everything perfect. I was listening to this podcast, the Imperfects. It's one of my favorite mental health, and Pat Cummins was on recently, and he was talking about he leads with failure, and they will talk about how we're going to fail today, and something that I thought was really interesting. And I think like that. I think when you're coming on with that tightness, and I think certainly that show, because Symphonie, I've been building it up for a long time, writing. It was probably one of my more serious shows, and I think at times I'd gone, I have to get it right. I have to hit these moments, and I was finding myself feeling really anxious and stressed. And then when I sort of could relax into more of like, it's fine, if I stuff up or if I fail or if it's,
Isn't that so funny? Like, not caring about it, but like releasing yourself from being so stressed about it is so much better. Yeah. Even just for the audience as well.
Totally.
It's like and I don't know how many auditions that you're doing, or if you're offer only nowadays as well. But you go into an audition, you're like, I really want this, and then you're so tight and you're in your head and you're terrible, and then you just go like, oh fuck it, I'll turn up, and they're the ones that like you get booked for all the time. Yeah. It's hard not to seem like you care, but also put in the work, but also seem like you're free.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
It's tricky. I've actually taught a few workshops with a psychologist on auditioning and anxiety. Yeah. Which is really interesting. Sort of this model that he tried to develop, and then I guess he liked my insight, because I guess he could bring the psych stuff and I could bring a bit more of the lived experience. And I think it's hard to go into it really quickly, but I guess I think you can put so much expectation, you can put so much of your identity on the line, and that kind of creates this sort of tightness, as opposed to, I mean, simplistically, it's like maybe going into a process mindset, or like, even if it is you go into that failure mindset, or what do I want to learn today? Like you could say to yourself, today it's another chance to fail, it's another chance to learn. And then I would sometimes go, I just want to work on one or two things or something like that. And I had this statement which came to mind at some point that I went, maybe it was before an audition, before a performance, I went, however I go today, it's not going to change how I feel about myself as a person.
I like that.
Which I've sort of tried to take as a bit of a mantra. And then I'd find with going into auditions, then I'd start to be more collaborative. Yep. And I'd start to be like, so this, this comedy style, like, are you wanting it to be kind of really over the top or really dry or something like that? And then they'd go, oh, no, really dry. And I'm like, okay, good. Whereas I think before I'd be like, I want to come in, I want to do a good job, I want to like, Whereas I guess you're wanting to establish that relationship and that collaboration.
Because you get the sides, not the entire script a lot of the time as well. Yeah. So you're like, I don't know what this project is sometimes. I don't know what the director's like, or who the director even is. Yeah. So like having that open dialogue, which is, I mean, healthy in day-to-day life as well, honestly. But yeah, it's nice going in with that, like, not going in and be like, be like shooting jokes at them and be like, hey, I'm the guy that you want. Just going in and being like a regular human being a lot of the time is what they're after.
And I think I've actually got probably a few ads from also probably be back to embarrassment, being prepared to embarrass myself. Yes. And actually sort of just go, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to go for it. And they all know, and it's like, I think they've gone, oh, we know that he'll go there. Yep. Like, I think this one I got was this guy going down a slippery dip, and I just, like, in his budgie smugglers, but I think I had to do a self-tape, and I just went, I was at my house sitting at my brother's place, and I went, like, I don't know if he had a slip and slide, and I just kind of did it and greased myself up, and And then, I think also just kind of going, he'll be prepared to like, all right, we can just see with him that he'll go for it if we really wanted to go for it.
He's comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is one thing that always comes up on the podcast is the TV commercial audition. Because like what you were saying, they are the weirdest, awkwardest, most embarrassing briefs that you get through sometimes. Just to the level where I'm like, I honestly think sometimes they're like a hidden camera show.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, where I'm like, there's every now and again I get one. I was like, I never saw that advert on telly afterwards, and I've just like danced in my room to a really weird song. And because everything's self-tapes now, so you're all recorded at home, and you're editing like this horrible dance, and it gets sent off, and you never hear anything back about it again.
Yeah.
So it's such a weird, and for anyone that doesn't work in the industry as well, TV commercials are essentially what pay our bills. Unfortunately, I wish that it was all the other stuff, but the TV commercial is kind of what gets us through day-to-day life. So you want them.
Yeah.
Whether or not like you enjoy doing them, you kind of have to. At certain levels anyway.
Totally.
Do you have any TV commercials or auditions anyway that come to mind which have really stood out for you? Because they are some bizarre things.
It's probably one maybe not that embarrassing, but maybe a lesson. I remember there was one that was going around for this, it looks like this lime cordial commercial.
Okay.
And everyone was kind of hearing about it, and it was like, there was this argument about whether, so they wanted someone that could juggle.
Yep.
And some people were getting this message going around going, no, they wanted someone that could really, really juggle. And then I can't remember if it was my agent or a couple of agents were going, oh, no. It's like, I think if you could kind of just do it and they're going to train you or something like that.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. And then they I came in to do it, and then I felt like I could juggle in the past, but at that moment, oh my God. And it was bottles as well.
Oh, shit.
And it was so bad. And you could just see they're going, you've wasted our time, we've wasted your time, and you've got at that moment, you wanted someone that could really, really juggle.
Yeah.
You just went that, and that's what should have been the brief. And I think I remember bumping into a friend later on. I was talking about it, and then she said, remember, I actually took this lesson. She went, oh, I said no to that audition because I knew that I couldn't juggle. And I kind of went, I did massive respect for that, because I don't know, it was something like $12,000 or something like that. And you sometimes look at the money, but I actually went, something like self-respect at that moment. I went, that's major props. But
it's hard to have self-respect when it's $12,000 on the line, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that one that I got with the slippery dip, that was not, I got it from the audition, but doing that was pretty tricky. That was up in the Riverland in, I think it was in August.
Ooh,
it was at night, freezing, in my budgie smugglers, going down a slippery dip. And they were pretty good at looking after me when it was the initial take, and they had this industrial heater kind of blowing up, and they had hypothermic blanket. But it was when they had to go for the long take, away. That's when it was really like, I think I found my balls again about 2 weeks later. But it's
it is funny sometimes because they look after you for the most part, but then also you're only there for one day, so like. Doesn't need to be looked after that well.
That's right. It gets to a certain point, and they're like, no, you're all right.
And everyone, you said it was a night shoot as well.
Night shoot.
Everyone fucking hates night shoots too. So like, I'm tired. He'll be fine. And I don't know about yourself, but I'm always super like, oh no, I don't need anything. It's fine. I'll just shiver in the corner. No. So maybe they're like, no, he's fine.
He's fine. Yeah.
That's his problem.
Yeah.
But you mean like a long take as in like super wide as well, so they were really far away?
Yeah, I guess because maybe when it was close, I guess you had that body surround, or the ability to put the blanket on really quickly. But when it was, so it was a super wide take, so there was no one around.
So people had to like sprint in from like half a K away.
Yeah. So that was, but I got it in one. So
nice. Watch out.
Oh, yeah.
Any other cordial brands listening?
They didn't want me to sue them. So I said, we've got it in the can. Yeah.
Like, I think we need to wrap this guy. He looks like he's dying.
Yeah.
But stop filming things in winter if you need to do that as well.
Man. It was, they were doing it for this camp, resort thing. But what was also really tricky is I think they were having this issue with the lake at the time, and it's something to do with algae. And so there's all this dead fish kind of like rocking up on the shore as well, and like having to clean up this dead fish. It's like,
what a glamorous fucking job this is, huh?
Yeah, come to this place. Like, and we just clear up the dead fish.
There's a man with budgie smugglers with hypothermia, and somebody just like shoveling dead fish.
Come.
That is gross.
That is seriously
So it's for
gross.
like a holiday park, was it, that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like a caravan park thing.
Yeah. Nice. What a glowing endorsement for them.
The things we do.
I know, but also, I would have done the same thing, honestly.
And look, it's paid me well, and it's had rollovers, you know, so it's like...
the rollovers.
Rollovers are the best.
Beautiful. For people that don't know, you get paid for a certain period of usage, so 6 months, 12 months. If the advert keeps playing, they roll over the pay, same amount of money for doing nothing. It's the beautiful thing. Yeah. So if any ads I've been in, if you want to roll over, just do it. I reckon.
Yeah. Put it on again.
It's
Why
fine.
not?
You all have too much money.
That's right.
Yeah. But please.
Yeah.
Do you find with any other editions as well, you've really been put on the spot for anything, or is it mostly just like I've always found it's predominantly TV commercial editions I get caught out with, but
yeah.
I mean, all other editions I always feel like I could have done that better, or I fucked up. I mean, the opening story of this entire podcast series was me trying not to shit my pants during a Shakespeare audition because I had gastro and they didn't have bathrooms at the audition space.
Oh no.
So I mean, not ideal. It has ever since it has ever been since then that I've tried to find somebody who's actually shit their pants during a performance or an audition or at work. But
I've been close.
Everyone's been close.
Yeah, especially in China.
Yeah, right.
A couple of things that I've eaten and then I've gone, but somehow you just get through it.
The body knows, huh?
Yeah,
the body knows.
Yeah.
I'll find it one day. I've heard tell. A couple of friends have had it happen maybe whilst they were swinging on cats maybe once, and like there's that little bits here I've heard, but nobody I've yet to meet. So it's all right. You haven't fulfilled my dream, Hew. That's quite all right. I'm still very happy to have you on the podcast. But I'll find it one day.
It wasn't a gastro at all. Actually, I wasn't unwell, but I did this. Something you said reminded me of this audition, or of a bit like the being put on the spot thing. Yep. I did a general audition for the State Theatre Company here a couple of years ago, and meeting the new artistic director.
Yeah, awesome.
And but context. Or whether to give the context first, I'll just give the context first. Is I think I did an audition for a show called The Popular Mechanicals, which is like a pseudo Shakespeare kind of thing.
Oh, cool!
5 years ago, and they were looking for they wanted you to do a comedic Shakespeare monologue, and I went, well, rather than doing a classic comic Shakespeare monologue, I had this idea of what I wanted to do was do. King Lear's blow wind and crack your cheeks kind of that speech, but I wanted to do it like he's got gastro. And so I did it like he has gastro, and it's all about him sitting on the toilet railing about that.
See, that's what Shakespeare works well with, because you can use it in lots of different contexts. Contexts. Contexti, sorry, yes. If we're speaking in true Shakespearean language. But yeah, that stuff lends itself very well to it. Was it received well?
Yeah, it was received incredibly well. But I then skipped forward 5 years.
Yep.
So I'm meeting the new artistic director. You're wanting to do a really good job. And then the casting agent or one of the other people suddenly went, hey, can you do that King Lear monologue that you did from 5 years ago? And then I kind of went, yeah. And then you immediately look bad. Because you neither can do it, neither can you remember it, neither you really want to do it. And it just it felt like it completely undermined my status at that point as well. And I just was like, and then I had to explain what I did,
which is always much better than
isn't
doing
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me explain this joke rather than tell it.
Yeah.
What a shitty thing to do, though.
I know.
That's and sorry, excuse the pun there as well, but it is such a mean and kind of rude thing to put somebody on the spot like that.
I mean, I think they're probably trying to be helpful, but just
maybe it's
stop.
ignorance over malice.
Yeah, I think so.
But even still, presumably they work in that space fairly regularly, and they know how much work goes into monologues and auditions and preparing things. So you're like, well, obviously I have to say yes. But it's not going to be good.
Because I think, it actually reminds me, I think there was another Shakespearean one that I got where my agent sent me the wrong monologue or the wrong duologue.
That is not the first time that has happened on this podcast. Yeah. That is insane.
Yeah. And so you go, like, I've gone to go in and do it, and they're going, that's actually not the duologue that we want. And so then they'll go, oh, look, we'll give you 5 minutes to look at it.
Oh,
and
great.
So,
that's all I need.
That's all really great.
Yep.
And so then you're doing it, and then you're on script, and you just look really bad.
You can't even look up. And especially with Shakespearean language, you can't really find your way through it without a script as well. Like, you spend all that fucking time breaking it down and learning the exact, I mean, even the fucking beats of the script. So you can't just be like, oh, I'll kind of improv my way around this scene. You're like, oh, great, I'm just going to read from a piece of paper and you're going to hate it.
Yeah.
Why don't you just let me do the other dialogue as well? That's crazy.
I know.
Wow. Also, that's not good, agent. Don't do that.
No, I'm no longer with them.
Yeah, funny that, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a couple of little red flags for any of you beautiful perverts listening. If that kind of stuff keeps happening to you, might be time to move on from your agent.
Yeah.
And look, we've all had agents in the past, and it's all a learning curve in this industry. But if there's any agents listening as well, you can try to do a little bit better sometimes.
Make sure you give them the right thing.
Yeah, just little things like that.
Yeah.
And also, like, even with the one you were saying about the juggling.
Yeah.
I know that you want that commission from that 12 grand. And I would like that 12 grand, minus tax and commission, of course. But you don't have to put me up for it, because it's going to be a detriment to both of us, if anything.
Yeah.
I once went for an audition for I'll say what it was, Carlton Draft advert. And they wanted people that were like circus performers that could do tricks with a keg. And I have 6 months basic training in circus. I'm a stunt performer as well by trade. So like I can do a lot of stuff, but not specific circus stuff.
Yeah.
So my agent's like, yeah, just go along. It's worthwhile. And I was like, is it? And I was also on television, currently on television with another alcohol brand. I was like, I don't think I can do this anyway. And he's like, oh, just go along. Again, an agent that I'm no longer with as well now, turned up. My circus teacher's teacher was in the audition room, and all these insanely talented circus performers were there. And I was like, this is not going to go well. Never guess what, Hugh? Went terribly. Yep. Didn't know what to do. The casting director was super sweet, and I was like, oh, thank you for being such a nice person, but this was fucking awful. Then she looked at my CV, and she's like, oh, I don't think you can do this anyway. You were on telly with this brand. And I was like, yeah, that's what I said. So, again, any agents listening, I know you want the money. We all want the money, but it's not worth our mental health sometimes.
There's something the opposite of sometimes, like, you hear about stuff in which they don't put you up for.
Yes.
That you sort of go, oh, no, we think you're more like this, or something like that. And then you're like, hang on, like, don't you want the money?
Have
like,
exactly described
like,
to me
I
in
need
the
a
brief.
Scottish stuntsman there. They go, no, we wanted someone with,
ginger hair. Ben Knight. Motherfucking Ben Knight. No, I'm sorry. He's beautiful. Friend of the show. Lovely guy. But he has not stolen. He has got many Scottish roles over me. And God bless you. I love you, Ben. Not a good Scottish accent. But 6'4", built like a brick shit house, long ginger hair. So he looks, quote unquote, Scottish.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it's that kind of stuff where it's just like, you'd think I'd be a shoo-in for that.
Yeah.
But not. Never.
No.
Very upsetting.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, we'll move back onto some of our prepared stories. So I know you came in with a couple of little prepared stories.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a particular way that you like to tell them. Usually on this show, I request that the guest maybe leaves the most like salacious story till the end.
Sure.
It's always quite a nice way to end on.
Yeah.
And then if you have any groupings of them together, they can either be told chronologically or because we have so many circus performers on here, it's always weird nudity stories that seem to get grouped together as well. Do you have any particular way you'd like to tell them, or do you have one that you'd like to leave till the end?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Otherwise, we can just jump in at the deep end with whatever ones you have prepared.
Let's just jump in, I guess. I'm going to jump in with this one where it seemed to come up in conversation last night with the Red District guys. I had this, there was actually probably a few things through this show, Shmoo. There was like my first clown show that I did. It was Red Nose Clown Show, Odyssey Schmodyssey. It was all in gibberish. I'm like wearing a rainbow lycra coloured like swimsuit, and I remember Damien Callanan, who's I think he's a Melbourne performer. He was I think he's been like getting people's anecdotes of sort of awkward moments on stage, and so he reminded me of this a couple of weeks ago of I was performing that show, and at some point I'm wrestling this giant inflatable pool noodle.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And a couple just stood up and they went to leave and they said, I'm sorry, it's just too much like home.
We both just had exactly the same reaction there.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know if they had like a very hyperactive child or something like that.
Maybe. Okay.
But or that they've, you know, I don't know. They've got a 6'2" clown in a Viking helmet with like running around home, and they just wanted a relief of a very serious show.
Just wanted something different for one night.
Yeah. But then I don't know. I just sort of was so floored by it, and then I actually just sat down in their seats in the front row, and they'd left their drinks.
Oh.
And then I just went, and then I drank their drinks, and then I just turned around to the audience and said, like, I mean, sometimes it is too much like home. And then I drank their drinks, and then I said, like, would you like to see the rest of the show? And they're like, yeah, I'd like to see the rest of the show. And then I just kind of went on with it. But I guess it was a really nice bonding moment.
So that can turn around really well for you on stage. We've had quite a lot, and again, this is why I give compliments at the start of the show, because I'm like, we've had quite a lot of walkouts from a lot of people on this podcast, but it's never the performance. It's always some weird reason or something not quite right with what the audience member expected to see.
Yeah.
But it always, the people that stay are always on your side for the most part, I would say. Yeah. So they're, if not more encouraged, like they want you to do better. They're super excited to be there. So especially if it's something awkward like that. And that's just weird.
It's so strange.
I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know what was going. I mean, like, I guess, like, it was funny. I went to see a Fringe show a couple of weeks ago, and I was not having a good day, and I got a lot of really good reviews and stuff like that. And I just actually found myself going, I just don't like this right now. And then I was shutting down a little bit, but then actually it was a good reminder for me at that moment of going, they might have been looking at me and going, he's really not having a good time. And I was going, well, I just wasn't really having a good day.
Yeah.
And so maybe you got to remind yourself about that and try and not take it too personally. But yeah, I guess also sort of just that, like, you know, some clowns are talking about feeling the flop, or I kind of sometimes call it like dropping in the honesty.
Yep.
Because like sometimes flop means, like, I don't think at that moment I was flopping, like I wasn't doing anything. I don't think I was doing anything bad, but I think just kind of just calling the room and dropping in the honesty, and then creating like this bond together between all of us, which it sort of did. And then the rest of the show went like firecrackers. You know, it was like, and maybe their energy was not good in the room or something like that. It was funny. I remember something you were saying, maybe with the father and daughter.
Yep.
I remember there was another show of Shmoo when it felt like it was a mum and dad and their 15-year-old kid, like in it, and I could see he just wasn't having a good time. And I don't know, for some reason, like, that show's not very verbal, but for some reason I just looked at him and I said, I don't know, like, you don't have to be here if you don't want, or something like that. And I went, if you want to sit outside, like, I'm really happy. And then he actually, I kind of like, almost weirdly, he perked up. I think he actually sort of weirdly felt taken care of at that moment, I think, or something. It was sort of like, I could feel like he sort of was dragged along or something like that. And then, I don't know, just that little bit of acknowledgement that he actually just sort of, after that, he went, no, I want to see the rest of it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, and just sort of just got on with it.
Yeah.
And
see, that's nice as well, because I think, like, a lot of the time, and not necessarily with like clowning, but a lot of the time with performers, that if they see somebody not enjoying it, they can go on the attack, and it can be through something of their own fault as well, where they're uncomfortable on stage, or it would be like one of those things where it's like people get laughs from quote unquote destroying the heckler or whatever, so you go on the attack, and it's like that bonding for the rest of the audience, but that one person there is fucked, essentially. So like, I think maybe just like, hey man, I get it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And maybe he was just, I mean, 15 years old is a fucking nightmare.
It's a weird time.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So
I hate it.
Yeah.
And you do sometimes get dragged along to things with your parents, you're like, I don't want to go and see this, man. Like, what is this?
Like, to be honest, like, to be honest, I sort of hate magic. Like, I
Yeah.
just, or like, there's some really good magic, and then,
Yep.
like, I think one of my worst dates I went on is like, she loved magic.
Oh.
And was then down the front row and that kind of stuff, and then
Was she in the industry or just like
no, just loved it,
magic?
loved it, and it was like one of those really like fancy sort of guys with like the open shirts and stuff like that.
Oh, like your
and
Chris Angel adjacent.
something like
Weirdos,
that. Yeah,
for
yeah.
lack of a better
and then
word.
he wanted me to volunteer for
Yeah.
one of those bits, and I was like, no, and I was like, oh man, it's
Yeah.
like, oh god,
That stuff can be
yeah,
tiring.
yeah, tricky.
Especially when you don't want to be there as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
The other schmoo one
Yeah.
I wanted to mention was I was doing that show in a fringe festival in Quebec. It was a little ways out of Quebec City, and it was a bit of a weird time. I'd gone over to Canada to see this girl. There was going to be this long relationship, like sort of the love of my life kind of thing.
Right.
And then it broke up. It wasn't good. So then I went to go to this thing by myself, and then like.
Oh, so the performance was after that?
It was after that, yeah.
I bet that was a great headspace
I know,
for you.
really great headspace. And then it was this little town called Chicoutimi, and not a lot of English. And
okay.
then I was performing in this, I guess, in fringe festivals, like
Yep.
performing in restaurant kind of vibe. And then the second night I went to do the show, I went, like rock up early,
Yep.
I think it was also my birthday that day or something like that.
Hugh, can you make this story any sadder?
Yeah. And then I think I went, maybe I'll have some cakes with the audience or something like that. And then I went to rock up, and there was this birthday party happening in the venue, but somebody else, like there was just this like 40th birthday party I found out. And then I went to come in, and like I think maybe even there wasn't a change room, so maybe I was half in my gear or something like that, like with my kind of bit of my clown makeup on. And then I speak very little French.
Yep.
And I'm trying to argue with this French woman, and she's like, it was like something about her birthday or something like that. And I was like, non, mon clown spectacle aujourd'hui. Then they're like, and then like gradually sort of audience members are starting to rock up.
Oh, so that was happening during when your show was meant to be on?
Yeah.
What was this restaurant?
I don't know. It's
Close
like,
your booking systems.
I know, they just had forgotten, and then I think I found out later from the festival, we forgot to tell you about that something.
Oh,
well, classic.
That is, we forgot to tell you. It's like, no, we wanted their money and your money.
Yeah, that's right. And so then the audience rocked up, and then I had to, like, in my little French, maybe someone translated, I said, maybe we could do the show in the park. And so I basically led the audience like a Pied Piper to a park. And like, so no lighting, no sound, whatever. I just had to do.
Of course, yeah. Oh my God.
So I had to do that show in a park, kind of.
Was it later in the day? Was it nighttime?
No, it was bright daylight at that
wonderful.
moment. I think it was summer, so I think it was 7 o'clock at night.
So everyone can see what's going on.
Everyone
at least they can
and
see
then you've
you.
got public kind of going, what the hell is happening? And then like, I'm fighting with a pool noodle in the middle of a park.
Oh,
and
it's
it's
the
the
same
same
show
I
as
think
well.
Maybe that show was cursed or something like that. But I get, like the, I don't know if any other people's stories where you go, sometimes like the worst thing, best thing kind of thing.
Yep.
I don't know if it was that show or one of the other shows. This lady came to see my show, and people were like, they translated me and said she was very, very moved by this show. She would like to meet you. And then I met with her, and she didn't speak any English. I barely spoke any French. And then and then I found out she was an Iranian refugee.
Wow.
And she used to be a drama teacher in Iran and had been moved. And there was something about that show. There's a lot of stuff about going over the water in that show. And there was, someone always called it this sort of almost like Jungian clown kind of thing. So you could almost project but she was so deeply moved by that show, and I really missed performing. And then she was like, we need to spruik your show and all this stuff. And then so she went around and flied for me, and she went to all these other places.
Oh my God.
And then like, I'm going to take you to these 2 restaurants and stuff like that. And then
That's fucking amazing.
And then had a really big crowd for the last night because she'd drummed up all these people. But something just I don't know. It had I guess she missed drama, she missed performing, and there was something about it. So I guess, sometimes you find those stories, you go, the worst sometimes can, something beautiful can kind of happen in a way. Which
exactly,
is really nice.
right? And that's a nice way of doing it as well, because you're like, if it was only the worst and none of the beautiful stories, you're like, maybe I need to rethink my career. But those ones, like that Iranian woman, like that's what makes it fucking worthwhile, huh?
Totally. Yeah.
And then when you're getting kicked out of your own venue to perform in a park, you're like, maybe it is time to learn a trade.
I know. Man.
I'm still blown away by how poorly organized that is. Like, that's bizarre.
Yeah.
Especially for... anyway, I don't like. We'll never get answers to these questions why they did it. We'll never get answers why people say this is too much like home. It's just those things you sit with, huh? And then sometimes, I don't know about yourself, but I'll sit there at night time just thinking about it and like, I'm investing so much energy into this, which is sometimes what the people that have done that won't even bat an eyelid to. Like, it's not even in their head, but it's just stayed with you for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I saw a show I won't mention its name, but I saw it was like a community show in the Fringe, and it was at this venue, and like it's the back of this cafe, and I kind of was like, oh, is that this cafe? I went, oh, that's interesting. And there was a 40th birthday party. No. But
and you had your 40th birthday party there.
Then it was like my friend was like, oh, I've got to go see this. Do you want to come in with me? And I'm like, sure. And then the show was, I don't know, something about reflections or something like that, and looking at yourself in the mirror, and it was like this circus show, and then
a circus show in the back of a cafe.
Yeah. It was just like concrete. Like all the really bad ideas, and this MC who was, I kind of feel like my most harsh thing was they found a local meth head to MC this show, but it was very
support
loose, kind of, it was like, hey, you going, welcome, and so this show's all about looking at yourself in the mirror, and we kind of had this whole thing about like, and all their outfits were sort of like mirror ball kind of design, but then like when we came and then we saw the venue, and so it had like skylights and stuff like that, so the lights are not going to work reflecting off the mirror ball outfits.
Yeah.
So he's kind of admitted that they haven't checked the venue, and the whole theme of the show.
I'm sorry, I'm so blown away by this. Check your venues. Adjust to what your venue is if you need to. Like, that's
and then
amazing.
maybe don't admit it in your opening speech.
Hey guys, heads up, this show's shit now. Enjoy.
It was like that, and then so these mirror ball outfits, they obviously weren't very well, and then they were breaking off when they were doing these circus things.
Of course.
Then between acts, he's sweeping up the mirrors from the ground,
shards of glass,
and he was going, "Oh, someone else is meant to do this job, but they quit the other day," and it was just like,
Jesus Christ.
It was just kind of getting tense. But then I was like, oh, man. Oh, and then I started to get the giggles because it was so bad.
Now, I'm going to say something horrible here, Hew, but I quite enjoy watching those shows sometimes.
Yeah.
It is car crash TV, and I realise it is not a nice thing to say, but
I know.
it is almost like performance art at that point.
It is.
Yeah, because I'm like, you couldn't have made... It's like when people go out to make a bad film because they want to follow in the footsteps of like The Room or whatever, but you can't go out to make a bad film. You have to go out, sincerely try and make a great film, and then it turns out to be like The Room or whatever some of those other films are. And that's what I think's like so beautiful about some of those shows. And I'm like, it's objectively not a good show, but I enjoyed it, so therefore it is maybe a good show.
I know.
It is
the
so
knife
confusing.
act dropped his first knife. And
No.
you're like, and so when you've got no confidence, right? And then he was doing fire stuff, and you're going
in a cafe.
In a cafe, and there's like sheer curtains. Like I've got these curtains behind me, and he's I don't know, probably 2 meters away or even less from these curtains with
How
fire.
low is this roof as well? Like,
no, and then he's gonna do fire swallowing, and you're just going, you've dropped a knife,
sir, please.
I know, like
take a couple more years. You don't have to do a show every year in Fringe. Like if you just started learning this, take your time. It's fine. There's always going to be a Fringe.
And then it was all flat seating, and then they had this kind of illusion act that no one apart from the front row could see. And you're like, oh man,
Change your show for the venue. Oh my God.
I want to try and make if I could try and make a show somehow, like a really deliberate bad show one day.
But it is so hard to do it.
It's so hard.
Like,
so hard to do.
Purposefully well without it seeming like you're doing it bad.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just becomes the play that goes wrong or whatever.
That's right.
And that is an amazing show.
Yeah.
But it's not that.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's so...
Yeah.
That has stressed me out, that story as well, I'll be honest with you. Is it still on? Can we spook this show?
No, I think it was one night only. We got shut down. We got shut down by the fire department.
That's right. Yeah, that cafe that burned down in Adelaide.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll start coming towards the end of the podcast just now as well. Did you have any other prepared stories that you came in with, or?
Yeah, I thought I would just maybe say this other one in terms of, I don't know, like I was having this little thought about. So I don't think anybody in the crowd would know that this was an embarrassing story, but I would say it's an internal embarrassment story.
So sometimes they're the worst. The ones that stick with you, which are seemingly nothing to someone else.
Yeah.
But they stick with you so deeply and for so long are some of the worst ones.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, do you know the cliche, like the actor's nightmare, the sort of like forgetting your lines kind of stuff,
You go up
whatever.
on stage. Oh, sorry, going up's like an actor's term for like forgetting your lines. You go up. Everybody has the nightmare of like, I haven't learned the script, I need to go and perform, and you let everyone else down as well.
Yeah. So I mean, I have never had that nightmare, but people talk about it a lot. But I was performing in the Cabaret Festival a few years ago here. And I think I was probably dealing with a lot of imposter syndrome at the time. Anyway, I was like, what the hell am I doing in this cabaret festival? And I was performing my show, Rudy's The Rinse Cycle. And Rudy's a very naive clown, like white face, like bare-chested, just sort of braces and pants. And then so I was doing that show, but then I was also part of this thing called the Vile File, which was like a showcase show about Kurt Weill. And it was on at the Dunstan Playhouse, which is maybe, I don't know, like 800 seats or something like that. Like
decent enough size.
And again, I'm sort of going, what the hell am I doing here? And I had a couple of songs prepared, and only had it was on like a public holiday Monday, and I was performing, I think, at 3:00, and then the Vile File was on at 5:00. And so I only had a really quick time for this little tech rehearsal earlier.
Yep.
And so there's this amazing English singer called Wodonga, and she did a song, and I was like, in awe. And then they went, okay, Hew, you would get up and do your song next, or your song. And so I practiced them and was like, okay, great. And then I rushed off. I did my show, finished my show, got ready for this one. And then what was a sort of a tricky thing with this show was they wanted to make it as a bit like cabaret style, like we're all sitting on stage on these sort of little round tables, like the whole show, even though it was like a showcase show. So it wasn't like, and now welcome Hew to the stage.
So you would step up from your table to perform?
Yeah. Okay. So it's like it's almost like someone is performing, and we're kind of almost like we're at a cafe, kind of sitting there, and then almost
and there was a 40th birthday going on as well.
And a 40th birthday going on, and I was there with cakes, and then there was a guy juggling knives and dropping them, and
this crazy guy just sweeping up glass. Yeah, beautiful.
That's right.
Love it.
But so I was on stage, and I'm sitting there and like sort of like a little bit like, what am I doing here? And then Ali McGregor, who's an amazing performer, I think like Eddie Perfect had sung something, and then
Jesus Christ,
so I'm on stage,
stacked talent.
Like I'm on stage with these people, like world class, like Eddie Perfect.
Genuinely,
and I'm like, what am I doing here? So Eddie Perfect does his thing, and then Ali McGregor sings this song, and like incredible, like opera kind of something, and everyone's. And then I hear this music, and then I'm just sitting there, and I hear this music, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. And because I'd only been in the afternoon, I swore I was going after Wodonga because but I think it turned out she must have been doing a show, so it's just how it went in order of rehearsal.
Right.
But I don't think anyone had told me what the order was, or
Come on, guys.
I hadn't taken on board, like...
Oh, maybe that's also
probably a bit of a combo.
Yeah.
But then also, I guess because you were, like, I don't have one tech rehearsal, and then I was on stage the whole time, so you're not having a stage manager, you didn't have a cue sheet or anything like that.
So there's nobody there to, like...
Yeah, no one's
herd the cats.
And now, and Hew. And so I could just hear this music, and I was like, that sounds familiar. And it was almost like this, my head was almost like, Rudy's a very naive kind of character. It was almost like part my head, part me, and then this sound and like this voice in my head, and then I don't know what it was, but there was like some magical astral force or something like that actually my body just stood up.
Disassociation, like, yes.
And my body just stood up, and then I went, and my friend Belinda Gellert is an amazing violinist, and I know she was playing in the orchestra. And so, like, Rudy's this sort of very kind of cutesy sort of character. So I did this cute little kind of vampy walk, when I like put my arm on her shoulder, looked down, saw that it was my sheet music, and I was like, right, that's my sheet music. And then did this cute little waddle up to the microphone, and then, like, luckily the pianist slash conductor was that he must have vamped it again.
Yeah, so they just looped it back.
And then I sung that song and somehow got through it, but I just, like, I honestly, I still remember that moment. It was like, just like pure clown, like, in a way of going, it was this pure impulse or this pure force which just like literally just got me up out of my seat. Because
that's what so many people strive for. You're not thinking about it, you're just acting on impulse.
No. But I just like thank the gods or someone, and because like the only person that knew was my girlfriend at the time. Like later was like, you forgot, didn't you? And I went, I did. And it was like in front of 800 people, like with Ali McGregor and Eddie Perfect and like Claire Bartholomew and all these amazing people.
Jesus.
It was like, oh my God. So
thank God it was live musician playing it as well. Opposed to just a track where you're like, I'll sing half my song now, I suppose, and go and sit back down.
I know. So
how is your headspace when you walk up? Maybe not mentally processing it all at the time, but you're like, fuck, I've just fucked that up in front of 800 people. And not only that, but some incredibly well-respected peers.
I think like I went to like a pure state in a way, like a sort of just, I think a few other clowns talk about some like you hit a clown state or but I guess it wasn't completely that because I was a little bit disassociated. Maybe you want to feel like you're in slightly more control, but I mean, maybe that is the power of the clown, of sort of going, it is like the power of the body, and then just being able to work with it and then somehow get back into the I think my heart was probably racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and like maybe sometimes a blessing. I reckon it was probably a blessing, a show like that in a big theatre with quite bright lights of not being able to see the audience.
Yes.
I think a lot of other shows would I probably keep the house lights up, or I want to contact a bit more.
Yep.
Maybe in a way at that moment it maybe helped me kind of be able to just...
Because you're almost in an empty room.
Yeah.
Because the stage lights are so bright for people that haven't been on those kind of stages before as well. You maybe see the first 2 lines of audience members, maybe.
Yeah.
And then past that, it's just a void.
Totally. And maybe a little bit of, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but almost the mask taking care of you in a way.
Yeah.
So I guess what I mean by the mask is, like, sometimes you might say the character or, like, I don't know, I guess it's the character, but I kind of feel it's almost that filter or whatever that maybe in a way Rudy, who is that sort of very naive, very kind of sweet. So it's almost
wholesome.
Like, let him take care of it. So almost like being able to do that little vamp in that mask, in that sort of character, and then sort of make it kind of work like, oopsie, like, it's sort of, I think, almost like let him take care of it. I think
this is Rudy's problem now. This isn't Hughes.
Yeah.
Rudy, take the wheel.
Yeah, so it's almost like thank you, him or something that it just sort of somehow
whatever's out there,
whatever got it done. Because I think that could have been supremely awkward if I had to, or if someone had to say, it's your turn now, or something like that. Because I think it would have really spoiled the magic of that performance as well, because I think they were trying to make a real flow in and out kind of thing as well.
Of course, especially if it wasn't one of those things where people were interacting with the other tables as well.
Yeah.
And then somebody being like, you're on.
Yeah.
That's hectic.
So,
but again, like what you said is what the audience doesn't know.
Yeah.
Like nobody would have, except from your girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have batted an eyelid.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, thank God for the accompanist at the time.
I know.
Thank God.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a good accompanist as well. I mean, like I've done a bit of cabaret, and ones that really know you and are prepared to sort of like, well, you know, you've gone a bit rogue in the song, or they'll just sort of find a way to kind of come back. I mean, they are geniuses.
They are the true heroes of the cabaret scene.
Totally.
That's, I mean, all of these stories have been pretty baffling, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm always so excited to hear stories because I never get to, for the most part, I never get to hear the stories before the podcast begins. So I'm always so happy to experience for the first time and firsthand. But I'm going to be sitting thinking about a fair few of these afterwards now, Hew, just being like, what the fuck happened? At least the Rudy one I can understand.
Yeah.
But the rest of them I'm just like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
So if anyone has any answers to these, please write in.
Or I hope that couple are okay, and I hope they've found, you know,
enlightenment.
You know,
peace at home.
Or that they've dealt with their invasion of pool noodles that they've been dealing with, you know.
Giant Vikings.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Oh, my God. But yes, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Now, unfortunately, at time of release, Red District is over. Absolutely fantastic show if it does remount again next year at Adelaide Fringe. It has friend of the show as well, Holly, in it. So I would absolutely suggest going to see it. But as far as Hew goes, as far as Hew goes, what have you got coming up? Where can people find you? What's the best way for people to keep an eye on any of your shows?
So I mean, you can find me probably on Instagram is probably a good way to go. HEWPARHAM. That'll probably be in the show notes.
Yes,
you just
absolutely.
Find me through that. I've got a show coming up called Symphonie of the Bicycle that I mentioned a little bit earlier. So that's going to be on in Adelaide as part of the State Theatre season. That's on in May at the Space Theatre. So that's one of my bigger shows, hour and 20 minutes. I play every character. It's about 20 different accents. A very big, meaningful show that I've been working up over about 7 years. So it's still a lot of humor in it. Probably one of the more serious shows I've done. And then that is going to Wodonga in Victoria in July. And then perhaps still waiting here, maybe further afield, hoping to get it overseas at some point.
Yeah, beautiful. As far as keeping up to date with where it may be, as well as Instagram, the best place to keep an eye out for any of the
probably Instagram,
stuff.
my website, or I've got like on Facebook, I've got my Hew Parham Entertainer page. That's probably a good way to follow me on that.
All of that will be posted down in the show notes again, as well as links to any of the tickets that are currently available as well. But definitely keep an eye out for that. And then the same as every week, you can find Won't Be Forgetting That Pod across most of the social media platforms. Myself, Seb Muirhead, MUIRHEAD on Instagram and YouTube. If you can, we have a Patreon page, patreon.com/Won't Be Forgetting That Pod. Chuck in a couple of dollars if you can afford. If you cannot, though, I get it. Trust me. You can give us a little 5-star review, though, which is free. So 5 stars in your podcast listener of choice. Write something in the review. Doesn't have to be nice. Doesn't have to be whatever, to be honest with you. You can write whatever you want as long as it's 5 stars. And then I've got a couple little bits coming up, so keep an eye out on the socials for that too. But Hew, once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.